hydrogen inhalation is slower at bringing the body up to its saturation point that you're breathing at. And so if you think about it, like it has a slow rising effect rather than a very fast, quick spike in H2. So you have a slow rise in H2 instead of a spike in H2, like hydrogen-rich water. And there are actually research that's showing that maybe this slow rising effect can be better.
The following is a conversation with an H2 industry expert. The views shared here reflect the expert's professional opinion based on their research and experience. Please note that this is not medical advice. We encourage you to consult with your medical provider before making any health-related decisions.
I'm here with Tywon Hubbard. He has several H2 companies. He has H2 Minutes and H2 Hub. So Tywon, thank you so much for being here. I know you are a leader in the hydrogen therapy space. Can you give us a brief overview of who you are, your companies, and the role they play in the hydrogen therapy industry?
Yeah, no problem. First of all, it's an honor to be able to do this interview and be able to discuss hydrogen therapy, and hopefully we can bring some more awareness around it. As you already stated, my name is Tywon Hubbard. I'm the owner of H2 Hub LLC and also the founder or the creator of H2 Minutes, which is my YouTube channel. So I'll start with H2 Minutes. H2 Minutes is a free educational based YouTube series on hydrogen therapy and all its related sciences. And so we cover basically everything you want to know around this topic. And on that YouTube series, we basically make sure that it's facts-based or research-based. So basically, you're not going to get much of my opinions. You're going to get the research. And that is kind of a absolutely needed thing in the industry right now. People make a lot of claims, but what does the research have to actually say about it? And then my company, H2 Hub, basically is a consulting company and basically the ultimate trusted source for all things H2. And so that's why we call it a hub. But my primary service that we do through H2 Hub to the industry is our third-party tested and recommended products. And so this helps consumers be able to go through all the marketing fluff of different companies, and they don't have to really deal with that. They can go to H2 Hub and see what products we've actually tested. And we try to identify three things through H2 Hub. We try to identify if the product provides therapeutic levels of hydrogen gas based on clinical studies. We try to make sure that the product is safe to use and that the product has some level of build quality. So you're not just purchasing something held together with bubble gum or something, right? So, and so that's what we do. And we also help a ton of people who contact us just having general questions around hydrogen therapy or anything like that. So those are my companies in a nutshell. I've been in this industry, working in this space now for over a decade. And so I've been able to help represent hydrogen and take it further and bring awareness to this actual research. Try to help many, many people with H2.
That's amazing. I know I've personally learned so much from H2 Minutes and all of your incredible videos. I'll make sure we link that in the description below. I'm really curious to ask, how did you personally become interested in hydrogen therapy?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this brief because it is a crazy story. So I did not go to school for this. This wasn't something of my interest when I was young or a youth or anything like that. But I basically ended up playing football for about 20 years of my life and aspired to be an NFL player and ultimately ended up being an NFL prospect when my wife's cousin introduced me to alkaline ionized water. So I don't know if you ever heard of that, but alkaline ionized water. And it was this special water produced by a water machine that you connect to your tap at home or your faucet, and it converts your ordinary tap water into this special kind of water. My wife's cousin was basically raving about this water and saying all kind of wonderful stuff. And so I'm the athlete in the family, right? He got to talk to me. And he's like, oh, yeah, tell me you got to get on this stuff. And I really didn't pay him much mind, but I ended up trying some of the water. And I was training pretty heavy in those days.
Mhm.
So I did feel like I noticed some benefits from it. Now, whether or not that was legitimate or whether it's placebo, I have no idea now. But I did notice something that piqued my interest, but I really didn't pay it any mind. And then about 6 months later, probably, the subject got brought up again. And so I have a very, very inquisitive mind. I want to learn and I like to figure things out. And
Mhm.
so I started to try to figure it out online, and I couldn't find anything that was really compelling that I felt like was factual. Everything
Mhm.
was tied to blog posts and companies and bunch of marketing information.
Yeah.
And so I kind of didn't know what to do with that. And so I'm a Christian, so I prayed about it. And I really do feel like God led me to an individual. And 2 weeks later, I ended up was online. I saw somebody teaching about the chemistry of these water ionizers that produces this alkaline ionized water.
Mhm.
And so I ended up contacting this individual and I basically asked him a host of questions. And this individual basically said, hey, hydrogen is the key. Everyone's talking about the alkaline pH of this water, but it's truly the hydrogen gas in this water. He said these systems is basic high school chemistry, it's water electrolysis. You run an electrical current through water and you decompose it into its natural elements, hydrogen and oxygen. And so this is why the water is all bubbly. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I started to research hydrogen gas in different medical publications. And that's when I started seeing that like it helps with like everything. There's so many studies that were like whatever disease model you wanted to name, um, you know, cancer or diabetes or metabolic syndrome or something along those lines. You start typing in anything in molecular hydrogen PubMed, and there's some kind of study for it. So I started reading all these studies at the same time where I was basically having my best opportunity to go to the NFL. And I became utterly convinced that molecular hydrogen was a diamond in the rough. No one was talking about it. So um, I started teaching everybody about it. And at the same time, like I said, I had my greatest opportunity in that year. I had agents talking to a couple teams to bring me into camp, and I didn't get brought into camp, but my notoriety for hydrogen started skyrocketing. Before I knew it, I had job offers and everything else. And so I took that as a sign for me to go ahead and continue to stay in this lane.
Mhm.
And I kid you not, 10 years later, you're talking to me in the same lane. So that's kind of how I got started. There's a lot of information in between that, but it gives you kind of the rundown. And it definitely was not something that I felt like I was wanting to do or choosing to do at the time.
Mhm.
As you see, I have really big, fancy rings behind me. I took football very seriously, and really wanted to be playing on TV and instead of actually doing what I'm doing today. But now I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've got to see the impact of H2 and really understand how special it is.
That's amazing. So you went deep into the research from like day one to figure out what exactly, was going on with the kinds of water that you were discovering, which is so cool. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty
it,
crazy.
in your opinion, what would you say molecular hydrogen therapy is?
Okay, so in a nutshell, in its most basic terms, molecular hydrogen therapy is utilizing hydrogen gas and administering it to benefit the human body to get its unique medical benefits. Now, I think we have to define what molecular hydrogen is, and I've already given a hint to that. It is hydrogen gas, but most people are not familiar with the forms of hydrogen. And so when
Mhm.
you say hydrogen, most people go to commonplace or common knowledge, which will be like hydrogen is found in water. So they think of hydrogen as H2O. And so this can be quite confusing. And so I think it's always good to define our terms before we go forward. There are four distinct forms of hydrogen. There is basically hydrogen ion or hydrogen cation, which is a single proton. Then you have a hydrogen atom, which is one proton and one electron. And
Okay.
then you have molecular hydrogen, which are two hydrogen atoms covalently bonded together. So they share electrons and exist in a gaseous form. And then you have basically hydride, which is one proton and two electrons. And this form of hydrogen is basically found in sort of like complex compounds. And so it's not readily like it's a more rare form of hydrogen. And so these are the distinct forms of hydrogen. And as I previously mentioned, like the one we know most about, is like a single hydrogen atom, which makes up the water molecule. But the form we're actually talking about is hydrogen gas. It is the smallest and lightest gas in the universe. And so that is what molecular hydrogen or is. And molecular hydrogen therapy is administering that gas to the human body to reap its medical benefits for us.
Got it. And I know there's different methods of obtaining hydrogen gas. There's the hydrogen water, and there's also hydrogen inhalation. Could you explain a little bit about the different methods of, getting that benefit from the hydrogen?
Yeah. So there's multiple ways of administering hydrogen gas to the human body. The most common one would be hydrogen rich water or hydrogen water, which comes off to a lot of people as like a scam or something because you like I said previously said hydrogen's already in water. What are you talking about hydrogen water? And it's like so I think defining that one is really important. And so like I said previously, um, hydrogen therapy is truly based on the form of molecular hydrogen, which is a gas. You can dissolve a gas into solution. So an easy common way of thinking about this is carbonated beverages. So carbonated beverages have carbon dioxide gas dissolved into it, which gives us its fizzy characteristics. So that's why it's bubbly. And so we understand that we can do this, but somehow when you use the term hydrogen water, it gets really confusing for people and it throws people off. And so, but it doesn't necessarily happen when you use carbonated water, right? Like they understand that intuitively that it means it has carbon dioxide gas. So this is just how they're named. Oxygen water will have oxygen gas dissolved into it. Hydrogen water has hydrogen gas dissolved into it, and that is the most common way of administering this gas to the human body. Is that you can dissolve molecular hydrogen into water up to its therapeutic concentration. So there is a particular concentration that or threshold that needs to be reached for it to induce benefits for us. So, for example, your tap water naturally has hydrogen gas dissolved into it, but it's at such low concentrations that it doesn't benefit us. So that's around zero point 0.8 parts per trillion. It's very, very low levels of hydrogen gas within our tap water. But the form of hydrogen water that actually induces therapeutic benefits has about 1 million times more hydrogen gas dissolved into it than our tap water. And this is where the concentration gets high enough for us to get the benefits from it. And so that would be hydrogen rich water. And it's used commonly in the human studies or in studies. The next one would be hydrogen inhalation. And so since hydrogen gas is a gas, you can breathe it. And so you can do that by simply getting a hydrogen inhalation device. There are some that are there are many on the market, but anyway, you can simply breathe it. And in the studies, this method is basically used as another form of hydrogen therapy. Is another way for you to get it. The fancy word for it is pharmacokinetics. There's different ways of actually getting this gas into your body. So hydrogen water is basically drinking this gas when it's dissolved into water. And then hydrogen inhalation is breathing it. You can simply do that with a device in a nasal cannula like you do with O2, with oxygen generators or oxygen tanks. And then there's other forms that are not so common, which is like intravenous solution or basically IVs. You can administer through an IV. This is used predominantly in the studies. You have hydrogen baths, you have hydrogen creams. There's a whole lot of ways that you can administer the gas, but the most two common ones will be hydrogen water and hydrogen inhalation.
Awesome. So, how is the inhalation different inside your body from drinking the water? And, how can somebody decide which one is right for them?
Yeah, so since it's two parts, I'll start with the first one. So how is it different? Well, by definition, one's going to be, drinking a solution. The other one's going to be breathing a gas. And so there's just going to be distinct characteristics of both of these administration methods. So for instance, hydrogen water, you're going to dissolve a particular amount of gas into the solution, and then it's going to drink it. It's going to go through your gastrointestinal tract. And so because it goes into your body through a particular pathway, it's going to hit certain organs at certain times and be exposed to these organs. These organs are going to be exposed to a certain level of hydrogen, and then it's going to get administered to your total body. So a way of thinking about it is that when you drink hydrogen-rich water, you're going to consume it, and it's going to hit your stomach first. You're going to have time to act on your stomach, and then it's going to go down and hit your intestines. It's going to have time to act on your intestines, and it's going to diffuse through the portal vein into systemic circulation or the venous system. It's going to take a direct path to your liver. It's going to be able to induce therapeutic effects in the liver. And then it's going to take a direct path to your lungs. We're going to lose about basically 60% of the gas. through exhalation, through breathing it out. But the other 40% is actually going to go through your arterial system and into systemic circulation to all your muscle groups, your organs, and all these other things, so like your heart, your brain, this stuff. And so because hydrogen water takes a distinct pathway through your body, it's going to have distinct yet related therapeutic effects to hydrogen inhalation, right? And hydrogen water, like I just said, you lose basically a high percentage of it relatively quickly within 5 to 10 minutes of consuming it. And then the rest, that 40%, is all breathed back out of your body in basically about an hour. So
Okay.
you just expose your body to a high level of hydrogen through hydrogen rich water, hitting particular organs at different time periods. Um, and you basically, it's done in an hour. So this is called intermittent exposure to hydrogen. You
Right.
intermittently expose your body to a higher level. Well, then hydrogen inhalation has its own distinct pathway into your body, which is through the respiratory system. So it goes through the respiratory system directly into systemic circulation of the arterial system, and it hits all your organs and muscle groups. And also it builds up over time. And so you can breathe hydrogen gas, so to speak, for a longer period of time than you can actually drink the water. They also seen in the studies that it's going to have a higher, you can reach higher concentrations systemically. So throughout the entire body when you're breathing. And so you have a longer duration, or you can have a longer duration. You have different organs that are hit at different time periods, which means it regulates different systems in a particular order. And also you can reach higher levels systemically. So they're going to have their own, like I said, related yet distinct kind of therapeutic effects on the body. And we see this in the research as well, that there's certain systems. Now, as far as the second question about when it's appropriate or anything like that, I think this comes into play of like the actual distinctions of the therapy themselves and just a person's life. So for instance, it's far easier, I should say maybe not easier, but let's say quicker to drink 16 ounces of water than it is to sit for 30 minutes and breathe,
Mhm.
right? Or an hour. And so if you have a busy lifestyle, then, and you're always on the go and you don't have, let's say, an hour just to sit and breathe, then hydrogen water might be better suited for that person,
Right.
right? But if there's an individual who has ample time or works from home or different things like that, they have that time to be able to sit and breathe hydrogen gas. And so some of the differences is just due to practicalities in a person's lifestyle. Now, we don't have the data just yet to say which ones, which therapy is more appropriate for different disease models or those kind of things. I think some things are somewhat intuitive, right? So if you're dealing with some kind of lung issue, you can breathing obviously is like it takes a direct path right to the lungs, exposes your lungs to a lot of hydrogen. That's probably going to be better suited. And maybe if you're having a stomach issue or something, right? Or if you're having some kind of gut issues, hydrogen water might be more intuitive, for hydrogen water to be used for that particular disease model, maybe gut dysbiosis or something along those lines. So there's always going to be distinctions, and right now into research kind of helps us flush out what are the best places and times to use it. Truly, both of them have their advantages and disadvantages.
And if somebody wanted to choose, like a hydrogen inhaler, what would be something that they would look for? Like, what are the specifications that could help them make a good choice?
Yeah, so I think some things to keep in mind here. First is that we have to rely on the research to actually define some of these things for us. So, for instance, if you're going to look for a hydrogen inhalation system, it's very important that if you know what is actually therapeutic and not, right?
Mhm.
What is actually going to give you a benefit and not. Same thing when it comes to hydrogen rich water. And
Right.
so, first and foremost is understanding um, what type of hydrogen levels are necessary for me to get the benefits based on human studies. And so
Mhm.
currently right now, based on human studies, you would say that they are administering 1 to 4% H2 inhalation.
Mhm.
And their inhalation sessions range between something as short as 10 minutes all the way over, 8 hours. And so, but by and large, for human studies, 1 to 4 hours per day is like the duration of breathing. hydrogen gas that induces therapeutic effects. So what does 1 to 4% inhalation actually mean? Let me explain that for you because I just said something y'all probably like, what the heck is this dude talking about? 1 to 4% hydrogen inhalation means that when we're breathing, our inhalation dynamics, we inhale and exhale, and we inhale and exhale a total amount of gas, oxygen, I mean, atmospheric gas, right? Um, over the course of a minute, right? And so over that course of a minute of inhalation and exhalation, this is referred to as gas exchange. We're exchanging gas, right? In and out. Over that course of a minute, the total amount of hydrogen that needs to be inhaled over that course of a minute needs to be between 1 and 4% of the total amount of air that we exchange. Typically at rest, humans, adults, male and female exchange anywhere between 4 to 6 liters of air at rest.
Okay.
So it needs to be between 1 to 4%. Of that needs to be H2. And so it could be something like 200 milliliters per minute of hydrogen needs to be supplied at least, right? 200 milliliters per minute needs to be supplied to get a benefit based on that range. And so this is what I mean by knowing what is therapeutic, because once you do that, now you can actually go to say, okay, what do we need to look for? Oh, well, first of all, I need to look for if the system is actually going to be supplying sufficient enough hydrogen gas for me to get a benefit. So is the device, one, therapeutic? Two, is the device have certain safety mechanisms? Because hydrogen gas is a flammable gas. It is a flammable gas. And so hydrogen's flammability concentrations is basically above 4.7%. It's flammable, right? But you have to get to higher concentrations for it to be detonatable, meaning you can cause an explosion or something along those lines. You have to administer a lot of gas to get to that level.
Totally.
But like these systems should have certain safety mechanisms in place to ensure that a person can breathe it without having to worry about any cause of harm.
Totally.
And then the next thing would be gas purity, right? So you want to ensure that the gas is safe to breathe. And so having a pure gas is obviously better than having gas with any kind of contaminants. And so there are a lot of different systems on the market and different technologies, but the easiest and most reliable one for gas purity, ensuring the gas is safe to breathe, will be using a PEM SPE proton exchange membrane or solid polymer electrolyte. This is a particular type of membrane that is used within the hydrogen cells. This systems that utilize this technology, a PEM technology, for producing the gas, because all you have to use is distill water and it'll produce pure 99% hydrogen gas. So gas is pure, safe to breathe. These are certain things like this. I think the other things you could talk about would be durability or reliability, maintenance, and make sure the device has low maintenance, and then make sure the product is third-party tested by a reliable and trusted source. This brother. And then I think lastly would be ensuring that the company you're purchasing it for, one, understands the H2, two, has good support and warranty in place to try to take care of the consumer, and that they have a wherewithal and understanding about the technology that they're selling. I think these are just some couple bullet points or, overview kind of outline points that a person can use to try to gauge the market. I can't overstate the fact that relying on resources like H2 Hub helps this process tremendously, because we do all that hard work for you. So you actually can just go and actually see which products actually have met certain performance standards and know that they're safe to use.
Absolutely. If anybody's done their homework on all of the available products in the hydrogen space, it is definitely you. We'll also link your website down below.
Awesome.
One other question, in all of your research, have you found that hydrogen therapy, especially the inhalation therapy, is supported by medical research? And have there been any studies that you've come across that just really stood out to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So first and foremost, yes, hydrogen inhalation is definitely supported by the research. Like I said, it's one of the most utilized forms of hydrogen therapy. in the research, and we have quite a few human articles or clinical studies that supports the use of this and actually showing that molecular hydrogen therapy via inhalation is indeed inducing therapeutic effects in humans. And so just for the audience to have a really good understanding of how much research is actually going on around this subject would be to give just a brief overview of it would be that currently we're up to over 3,000 research articles and publications on hydrogen therapy in general, with covering more than 170 human disease models that it seems to be therapeutic for. This is not a recent count. We could actually be above 170 human disease models that are shown to be therapeutic, with no cytotoxic effects, no damaging or cell damaging effects have been discovered thus far. So I don't know how many different, therapies or even beneficial agents you could say has this much research, has no damaging effects, and has such a broad reach or such a broad scope of, disease models that it can help with. And currently with human articles, we are upwards of over 200 preclinical and clinical human studies with a bunch of different meta-analysis and systematic review articles that are being published right now that are, like I said, indeed showing that molecular hydrogen is having therapeutic effects in humans. Now we need far more studies to understand, like I said earlier, kind of the dose protocol and regimen for hydrogen therapy. These are things we don't have yet, but what we can do is utilize these research articles to kind of see what they're administering that is producing statistical improvements in humans and kind of follow that model. If those want to try this therapy out at home. I think what I would say as far as something that's really interesting about hydrogen inhalation that I find intriguing would be that, like I said earlier, that there is a distinction between the administration methods.
Okay.
And that it is kind of largely seen that hydrogen water will probably be better for gut health. Right. We have some articles that clearly show that hydrogen water has the potential of regulating the gut flora, decreasing or improving, decreasing oxidative stress and inflammation in the gut, improving the intestinal gut wall. Basically, hydrogen water, there are studies that are showing that molecular hydrogen is able to, enhance or increase butyrate production within the gut. Butyrate is a short chain fatty acid, which has tremendous, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory effects, and, subsequent benefits on other systems in the body. And so it can be largely assumed that basically hydrogen water is going to be the primary thing to target the gut, and that's going to have beneficial effects. And so that while that is true in a sense, that we do see these studies, there are also studies that hint that hydrogen inhalation can benefit the gut in its own unique ways. And just like I said, they're basically distinctions. So one of them is that we do know that molecular hydrogen, or I should say, one of the things that we do know is that to improve the gut health and alter gut flora is a timely process, right? And so it takes a while. And there's research that indicates that maybe hydrogen inhalation, because of its slow rising effects. So as I said, molecular hydrogen, when it comes hydrogen rich water, when it comes to drinking it, it can go pretty fast. I mean, you can already get, hydrogen elevated levels in your blood in about 5 minutes from drinking it. So you can drink it and it can be already getting into your blood, and it peaks in your body at about 20 to 30 minutes. So it's really fast. And then you basically breathe it out, and it's done in about an hour. Well, hydrogen inhalation is slower at bringing the body up to its saturation point that you're breathing at. And so if you think about it, like, it has a slow rising effect rather than a very fast, quick spike in H2. So you have a slow rise in H2 instead of a spike in H2, like hydrogen rich water. And there are actually research that's showing that maybe this slow rising effect can be better for certain intestinal conditions, or even altering the gut flora in some ways, because we know it's a timely process, and you can actually have a longer duration. So you can expose those bacteria to hydrogen for a longer duration of time than you can with hydrogen water. So we shouldn't necessarily falsely assume that one particular way of administering hydrogen, even though it's intuitive, that is going to be the best suited for every scenario and every condition when it comes to the gut, let's say,
Mhm.
or different disease models. Whereas we actually are seeing that because of this slow rising effect and because of the longer exposure time frames you can have, and there's actually some studies that indicate that it might be able to alter the gut flora in a unique way or gut composition different than hydrogen water does, and maybe even better in some instances than hydrogen water. And so I find that really intriguing because one of the things I've seen with research in H2 for as long as I have is that anytime you think you got it pinned down, you don't. Anytime you think you know it all, you don't. You think
Mhm.
hydrogen only acts as an antioxidant and that there's no, like for instance, you say hydrogen is a therapeutic antioxidant. Yay. Well, I say hydrogen has antioxidant-like effects. That is
Okay.
not just strictly an antioxidant, it has antioxidant-like effects because there's certain instances where they see molecular hydrogen can actually induce a mild, very mild, um, increase in oxidative potential. So kind of like a mild oxidative stress effect. Wait a minute. So you tell me it's bidirectional? Yes, it's bidirectional based on certain cellular scenarios.
Okay.
So maybe this cell, right? Maybe this particular cell, we had two cells. Maybe this cell is under oxidative stress, right?
Okay.
It's under a damaging process within the cell. Well, hydrogen can go in and increase the antioxidant status of that cell or alter what's called the redox status of the cell, increasing antioxidants such as glutathione, catalase, superoxide dismutase, all these different beneficial antioxidants. Well, maybe this cell is under reductive stress. It needs more oxidative potential, it needs more oxidative power. Well, they've seen that hydrogen can go in and increase a pro-oxidant or free radical called superoxide anion, right? And it can do this mildly in the mitochondria and give it oxidative potential so that maybe, for example, for like something like folding proteins, now this cell has the oxidative potential for folding proteins and benefiting the cell, whereas this one was under oxidative stress and it needed to have an antioxidant effect. They've seen hydrogen was able to do both. And so
Okay.
anytime you think you have it pinned down or that you understand it fully, no, we shouldn't just slice and dice it. It is far more nuanced, and I think it's far more special of a molecule than we realize.
Totally. And that's not typical of other things we call like antioxidants.
No, no, no. I mean, this is why I say hydrogen is not a conventional antioxidant. Conventional antioxidants basically donate their electrons, right, to a free radical, neutralizing it, making it, so let's say, like a pro-oxidant or something less damaging, while
Mhm.
maintaining the fact that they don't become overly damaging themselves. So think of like vitamin C.
Mhm.
Well, molecular hydrogen doesn't work that way. The molecular hydrogen, I would say, is a I would say is a regulator of the antioxidant systems of the
Okay.
cell. And so there's two different ways to get the same outcome. So a conventional antioxidant can neutralize a free radical or neutralize free radicals, right? Reducing the oxidative damage in a cell and giving it an antioxidant effect. Well, that's one way to do. That's one way to have an antioxidant effect on the cell. Or you can do what hydrogen seems to be doing far more than, let's say, what this is called free radical scavenging. Hydrogen might do this in very, very small amounts. But what it looks like it's doing far more of is basically regulating what's called the redox status of the cell, the antioxidant and oxidative status of the cell. And it can do this by activating the master regulator of our antioxidant system called the NRF2 pathway. This NRF2 pathway, like I said, is the master regulator. It regulates over 200 cytoprotective genes in the cell. So, in other words, hydrogen is able to turn on over 250 cytoprotective genes and ultimately increase a ton of different, antioxidants within the cell. So it can now, instead of just neutralizing guys,
Mhm.
it's basically calling in the troops that neutralize guys, right? And so it's like that's a whole different ballpark than just neutralizing free radicals. And
Mhm.
so I think that this is why I say it has antioxidant-like effects because it's pretty remarkable how it's able to do that. And this is just one way that it does it. There's other ways, like basically preventing the elevation of damaging free radicals in the first place. That's
Mhm.
another way that you don't have to deal about oxidative stress is if you just prevent it. And
Yeah,
so there's just a ton of different things like that about H2 that makes it so special.
that's fascinating. You said a word that I would love for you to just define a little bit when you're talking about cytoprotective properties.
Think of cyto as like cell, so cell
Okay,
protecting.
got
Uh,
it.
and so that's what that word would mean is that these are cell protecting molecules,
Mhm.
right? And then we have cytotoxic, right?
Mhm.
So we have molecules that are toxic to cells.
Mhm.
And so one of the most damaging molecules, or I should say the most damaging molecule is the hydroxyl radical. And this molecule serves us no benefit. Not it has no kind of benefit to our cells or anything. It just damages everything. And the cool thing about it is that hydrogen uniquely targets the hydroxyl radical and another really, really damaging molecule called peroxynitrate. One is
Okay.
a reactive oxygen species, so it contains oxygen. One is a reactive nitrogen species, so it contains nitrogen. And both of these guys are just the big bad wolf in the cell, and they just cause all kind of havoc. Well, molecular hydrogen, molecular hydrogen can reduce the hydroxyl radical in many different ways. It can upregulate catalase, which catalase is an antioxidant, which can neutralize the hydrogen peroxide, right? And hydrogen peroxide is actually used to produce hydroxyl radicals. So this is one of the ways they can prevent it, right? So it can
Right.
upregulate this to basically reduce this one, right? So that
Mhm.
this really bad one doesn't get it. They've also seen within the scientific literature that molecular hydrogen can convert the hydroxyl radical into water. So by direct reaction. Now this is what I was saying about the free radical scavenging. It might not do this as much as we think it does in a cell. And so while that's really cool that it takes the most damaging thing and it takes it into the life-giving solvent of water, which
Mhm.
is crazy to even think about, it seems like it's actually reducing the levels of these damaging free radicals in a very unique way that's not akin to conventional antioxidants. There's more evidence that suggests this way than it does this way. But knowing that hydrogen really targets these two means that it's a selective antioxidant.
Mhm.
Whereas conventional antioxidants, like let's say vitamin C is non-selective. It doesn't care which one it neutralizes, just donating, right?
Right.
But maybe some of those free radicals are needed for really beneficial or beneficial processes within the cell or our bodies, such as like the immune system or cellular growth or these kind of things. Like not every free radical is bad, but hydrogen targets the bad ones.
Yeah.
This is amazing, So I just find it utterly fascinating that we have something that is producing, let's say, an antioxidant effect on the body, but it's doing it in a way that's regulating it. It's selective, right? It only goes after the bad guys. And it might, based on the research, actually even have some direct free radical scavenging effects with this hydroxyl radical, converting some of these into the life-giving solvent water.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, yeah, it is. That's why you should drink your hydrogen water or breathe your hydrogen gas.
I'm ready.
I think the last thing I would say too,
Mhm.
is that we have to understand when it comes to both of these different therapies, hydrogen inhalation, hydrogen water, the research is suggesting that doing them both is probably better than doing one over the other or as a monotherapy. So
Okay.
doing hydrogen water and hydrogen inhalation in conjunction with one another or simultaneously. There are some research that suggests that doing it simultaneously or in conjunction basically can have a greater systemic effect on gene expression. That's how hydrogen works. Basically, it goes in, activates these different pathways in our cells and metabolic pathways, and then ultimately leads to altering gene expression. So now the cell's just functioning differently. But
Okay.
anyway, so it seems like it can do this on a broader scale systemically when you do both of them together,
Okay.
than if you did them separately. And so this is why. in one of my H2 minute videos, hydrogen water versus H2 inhalation. I go through and I show this research at the very end that
Mhm.
we have genes in our body that respond specifically to hydrogen rich water, genes that respond specifically to hydrogen inhalation, and we have genes that respond specifically to both of them administered at
Wow.
the same time. So it's best to go ahead right now until further research is done of like elucidating dose protocols and proper dosing, and it's probably gonna be disease dependent, sex dependent. It's gonna have a whole lot of dependencies. It's best to go ahead and ensure you know what is therapeutic, that you're getting a product that is therapeutic, and that you're using both forms to get the maximum effective H2.
That's incredible. I learned something every time you break this all down. So I'm so grateful for you to hop on this call with us. You know, H2 Hub and H2 Minutes are both, imperative for the hydrogen industry. Maybe if you just wanted to remind everybody where they can find you, share a little bit about, just the groundbreaking work that you're doing, to help everybody who's interested in hydrogen therapy,
Yeah,
really make an informed decision, because I think
yeah.
that's something that's super valuable.
Yeah, no problem. So, first and foremost, like I do think I would echo what you said. I do feel like it's imperative. I feel like right now, most of the real factual information around hydrogen therapy is locked up. And what I mean by locked up, it is locked up in studies. Most people are not waking up every day reading medical jargon and reading studies. And so because of that, it's kind of locked up in these studies. And so H2 minutes is the key to unlock these studies. And that's what I see our YouTube channel as. We take scientific articles, we go through them, we reduce it without losing accuracy. That's key, because you can reduce things and then ultimately you can start to lose accuracy. We attempt to reduce them as much as we possibly can without losing accuracy, and then we repackage it and disseminate it so that the everyday person can understand how special this research is, which tied to an actual therapy that seems to actually be benefiting humans. Um, and so I feel like that's imperative. I feel like we're the channel for the people. And so there are other giants in this space that, I would say that are awesome that you should be listening to. Individuals like Tyler LeBaron. He is a giant in this space. He's an actual scientist that works in this field, the founder of Molecular Hydrogen Institute. He's one of the world authorities on this subject. And he definitely has his lane in place, and we need Tyler. But I think this is where H2 Minutes comes in, where H2 minutes is also needed in the sense of like what I just said, which is taking this information, repackaging it so that everybody can get it. And so whereas Tyler's going to be the person that I feel like is going to be so awesome for medical professionals, other scientists, other people to be able to be able to understand, because he can speak to their language.
Yeah.
H2 minutes is the language of the people. His language is a language to the academic.
Yeah.
And so they're both needed. So that's what I would say about H2 minutes. You can definitely find me at H2 minutes. You'll see my wonderful little brown face talking about H2 all day. And then I said the last thing would be H2 Hub.
Mhm.
Right now, my company, H2 Hub, I don't really know of any other company in the marketplace that functions like us to do what we're trying to do. The market for H2 is growing rapidly, and people are starting to learn about hydrogen therapy, and people are seeing the effects of it, and it's amazing. But what comes with that is that what comes with the developing market is just the wild, wild west. Like everyone is just throwing products out. You got to get it. It's amazing. So it's a lot of just hype, 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 grab, 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 grab. And you can't really know. It's hard for consumers to know what is hype and what is truth. And so H2 Hub functions in that gap for products to help people understand what is true. And so we do that through objective third-party testing. And so these products that you see behind me, I've ripped them apart. We've tested it against actual performance standards that are based off clinical studies, so you can understand what is therapeutic and actually good. You're not just going up and just reading a bunch of different companies saying everything about their product and knowing that they're wanting to make a sale. And so it's like, that's great, but what happens if you get a product that don't actually provide therapeutic levels of hydrogen?
Mhm.
That's what happened to me. That's why H2 Hub exists. Spent thousands of dollars on a product and found out that when I tested it for hydrogen gas, that it was far lower than what I ever expected. And so if that's what other consumers are doing, spending thousands of dollars on this and not getting therapeutic levels of hydrogen or far less than what they're paying for,
Yeah.
then somebody needs to come in and help and save the day. And that's what H2 Hub is. We're here to help and save the day. And so we function on both sides. And I think my companies are imperative to this industry to really help consumers, help the everyday person learn about it and be able to engage with H2 therapy to actually find a good product.
Awesome. That's amazing. And yeah, that is so necessary. I just want to give you a really big thank you for being on this call with me today. Like, I'm still processing most of the pearls of wisdom that you shared about molecular hydrogen and all of that great information about, what it does in the body. So thank you so much for taking the time. I'll make sure to drop all your links in the description below.
Thank
And
you.
I appreciate you and all the work that you do in the industry. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No problem, Lauren. It was a pleasure. Like I said, it was an honor to be able to get on here, talk about H2. I really appreciate the opportunity to continue to push this information out, and thank you for giving me the platform to basically do that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.